Good morning. How are you guys doing today? I am doing very well, and I'm very amused because something that I've been predicting is starting to happen, which is that the polls are, ever so gently moving into Ukraine. Man, it's so damn funny. It's so funny when what you sort of like predict is going to happen actually starts to happen. It's just one of those. It's actually a very satisfying feeling. That sense that I was on the ball. I said, and I've been saying for over actually since early April, late March, something like that. I've been saying that the polls have their eye on a piece of Ukraine, the western piece of it, and they are going to figure out a way to get it. They are. So what's happened is that okay. So yesterday, like the Polish president was in Ukraine, and he gave an address to the parliament in Ukraine in Kiev. And there's this photo op, big hugs with Zelensky, and it was kind of comical because Zelensky, like all actors, is fairly short. And by the way, the reason actors tend to be short, famous ones at any rate, is because when people are short, they tend to have a smaller body, and their head is proportionately bigger. Okay, and why is that? Well, because they register better on camera. I mean, look at me. I'm 6 feet, right? And my head and my body seems a little bit big, but when you meet me in person, it's perfectly normal. It's because on camera, the camera, when they say that a camera adds 20 pounds, well, yeah, let's not even talk about how many pounds the camera adds on me. But anyway, the point, it's so goddamn funny. The president of Poland is there, and he's pledging undying love and mutual support and all kinds of nice-sounding bullshit, right? And what's really going on? Oh, and one of the things that they passed, that the Ukrainian parliament passed, was this special dispensation that Polish citizens could come into Ukraine, like almost like there's like no border between Poland and Ukraine. And this is part of Poland's program, rather. Sorry for the alliteration. Their notion is that they want to sort of like erase the border between Ukraine to give themselves more justification to go into Lviv, to go into Galicia, as I've said repeatedly. Galicia being the region of Ukraine that the Poles lust after. Mm-hmm. And so what they're planning on doing, it's so transparent, is to make it so that, Poland and Ukraine are as one, as they say in cheesy love songs. And right now, as a matter of fact, it's not clear if they are Polish soldiers or Polish private military contractors, i.e. mercenaries, that have arrived in Dnipropetrovsk, in the center of the country of Ukraine. There's 2 battalions of these men, of these Polish fighters, and they're supposed to arrive and to be deployed to eastern Ukraine, to the Donbass region. Now, these guys, these 2 battalions, a battalion is, 600 to 800 men. Now, 600 to 800 men, rather. Now, these 2 battalions, they don't represent that many men, but they could be important because if they're private military contractors, they're the cream of the crop insofar as fighting soldiers are concerned. And quite frankly, even if they were regular Polish army, the Poles are going to send, their best men, their best combat troops to Ukraine to assist. Now, the game plan is really simple and ought to be transparently obvious. The Poles want to inch their way into Ukraine on their own, but they're, of course, a part of NATO. And so the idea is that they sort of like inch their way into Ukraine, and when the Russians attack them, then all of a sudden Poland is going to remember that it's a part of NATO and claim, oh my God, the Russians attacked Polish soldiers and, or Polish citizens in Western Ukraine or whatever, try to fudge the issue. That's the game plan. The other thing that's going on with the Poles, the chutzpah, the brass of these guys, of the Poles, they started complaining and bitching and moaning about the Norwegians, because the Norwegians, of course, export gas like there's no tomorrow. They are very rich because of the gas that they have in their territorial waters. And the Poles were saying that, because of the sanctions and all that, that the Norwegians should share the profits of their gas. It's like, it's like they're like, you live next door to somebody, and the guy quits his job for whatever reason, whatever political reason, and then he turns to you and says, "Hey, you make some money. You should give me money, because I'm unemployed now." And you're like, "What the fuck, man?" But that's what the Bulls are pushing, and I hope that for the sake of the Norwegians, at any rate, that they tell them to take a hike. But who knows? I mean, these Euro weenies are so goddamn stupid that who knows? Maybe the dumb Norwegians will give them some of their own money for nothing, for no reason. I mean, because they're that kind of stupid. Well, Europe is a rich, dumb continent that deserves to be wiped out at this point. I have no sympathy for the way that they have destroyed themselves. I used to have sympathy for them. Not too long ago, just a few weeks ago. But the way they're going, they're just such buffoons. And the European citizens are such sheep to go along with the loser leadership that they have, that I'm just like, something, they deserve it. It's sort of like, that abused wife, and you create all kinds of possibilities so that she can escape her abusive marriage, right? And you do everything, and you pay for counselors and tell this abused woman, we'll set you up somewhere with your kids in a nice hotel somewhere so you can rebuild your life. We'll pay for it. We'll do everything for you, right? And the abused wife is like, yeah. But then she goes back to the abusive husband and is like, oh, it's that he needs me or something like that. And you're like, what? And this happens all the time, of course. You know this. And in the metaphor, of course, the abused wife and kids are the European people. And the abusive husband is the moron European leadership that keeps abusing its own people despicably. That's what's going on as far as I'm concerned. I mean, you get to a point where you're like, I don't have any more sympathy for these people. They deserve each other, And if they're going to go off a cliff altogether, let them. So anyway, that's my sense about Europeans, I've lived all over Europe. I've lived in London. I've lived in Paris. I've lived in Amsterdam. I've lived in Germany. A hell of a lot of time in Switzerland, long enough in Switzerland that altogether I must have spent, if I had to guess off the top of my head, I'd say I've spent maybe 2 years of my life in Switzerland at this point. Yeah. At least, actually, now that I think about it, at least 2 years of my life in Switzerland. So, it's like, I know the continent, and I know how arrogant they are, and how full of themselves they are, because they're rich and prosperous. And they didn't earn this wealth or prosperity. They inherited it. And they, like every typical rich kid who's an arrogant little shit, the same thing is going on with the Europeans. And they think that they're entitled to all kinds of stuff. And they're not entitled to shit. But anyway, about this whole Polish situation, which is the point of this video. It's funny because it's so transparently obvious what they're doing. They're trying to provoke the Russians into some sort of attack on the Poles that would justify NATO incursion into Ukraine. Now, there are two possibilities, it seems to me. Either the Russians can kind of like ignore the Poles, right? And, whatever these 2 battalions go, and 2 battalions is not that much, they could just hit them like they hit all the other Ukrainian armed forces battalions and not even notice, not even tell the difference, just pretend that they're just more soldiers and just keep on fighting them, keep on grinding them away, which is what the Russians are doing. They are grinding away in the Donbass. I mean, that is just, every day they are winning. Okay, my channel is not about the tactics and the day-to-day battles that are going on in this conflict. That's not the point. And, I'm not really competent in that kind of stuff. And it bores me silly, quite frankly. But every day you're reading about, this village, that village, and I follow it on the maps. And it's like every day the Russians are just chewing a little bit more of the country.
in this grinding, methodical way. In the way that I told them, quote unquote, but they're never going to listen to me, of course. But I said, which is the right way to do it, which is to bore the West to death with this relentless grinding. That's what they've been doing. It's been extremely effective. And some of the smarter people in the West are realizing how effective it is. And some of the dum-dums and dinglings, who are only attracted by flashy headlines are like, oh, the Russians aren't winning because, they're not breaking out and having a dramatic movement. That's the fucking point, you moron. Anyway, the point of this. The Russians, it seems to me, they have the choice of either treating the Poles as just another army and just keep on fighting away, or they can hit these 2 battalions with Kalibr missiles or something and just really just knock them out, just knock them on their asses and just blow them up, really. I mean, just annihilate them. And they've done it before. Back in Yaroviv, in early March, when they threw a few Kalibr missiles in that installation just to the west of Lviv, near the Polish border, and they killed, 400 foreign fighters in one go? 400 or 500 fighters, I think it was. Yeah, it was 500 fighters and foreign fighters, and $400 million worth of Western gear. Knocked them out in one go. They could do that in Dnipropetrovsk, and I know that the Russians know exactly where these Poles are, no question. And that's a second option. And the third option is to just start hitting Poland like hitting Poland and go to war with Poland and fuck it. Go to war with NATO and all that. I don't think that the Russians are going to do that nuclear option, if you want to call it that. And so I think that the real issue is whether they hit these foreign fighters in their barracks or just grind them with the other Ukrainian armed forces. Because they will grind them. Because it's just fucking inevitable, because that's what they're fucking doing, right? So we'll see. We'll see how it all goes. But like I said, this is just transparently obvious. The Poles are just trying to get their piece of Ukraine. They don't care about Ukraine and eternal brotherhood and all that. That's all so much bullshit. They just want a piece of Ukraine. And the way things are going, they're going to get it.